On the road, we thought we were bulletproof. We loved the music, but the music was secondary to what we were doing. All we really did was party. We seemed to be in motion all the time. We'd be out there 300 days a year. We didn't work all the dates, but we couldn't afford to go back. We weren't making a whole lot of money. The only thing left to do was have a good time, and we were probably making terrible music, but as I look back, the edge was there, and the edge kept it alive. It may not have been good, but it was rocking. Richie and another member of the band named Jimmy were in a lot of trouble on June the 10th when they were arrested for marijuana possession at the Rainbow Bridge border, separating the U.S. and Canada. Heading back across the border to Nashville, our two-vehicle convoy, my Cadillac and a station wagon, got stopped at the Niagara Falls crossing. Long hairs in a limo. The Cadillac got through, but the station wagon was thoroughly searched. Jimmy Gray tried to toss out the evidence, but that alerted the cops, and pretty soon they found themselves in the slammer. Boy, were they mad at the cops and at each other, and I was laughing at them, calling them criminals. And then I really gave them a chewing out. I said, if you hadn't been messing with that shit, you wouldn't have gotten into trouble. If they'd have just been taking pills like me, they'd have been okay. I even fired Jimmy. Now, I was an easy boss, except when it came to dictating what kind of drugs you took. Of course, I never considered pills as being against the law. It was a lot like a little game with us, and we didn't know you could go to prison for pills. We weren't afraid of being busted because all we had to do was show your prescription bottle or get somebody to write your prescription. The thing was, I thought they were on drugs, and I was taking prescriptions. None of us realized that there was no difference. We'd gotten started on pills by getting them from doctors and pharmacists who gave us no warning. And booking agents would slip us pills to keep us going. Now, that's no excuse, but we never even thought they were addictive. We didn't know that they could kill you or make you kill yourself. I didn't like anybody to drink around me. I never touched the stuff. That was my big boast. And cocaine, I thought that was terrible, at least then. As for pot, I just didn't enjoy sitting around grinning. Richie and I wouldn't socialize much. He was with the band more. The drugs divided us, and as things got more out of control, Richie started thinking about taking a break. He was just running himself down living on amphetamines, and had been for 2 years or more. He needed to head home for a while and settle himself. He came to me on the bus and said, "Man, I'm worn out and I have to leave." I nodded and said, "Man, I wish I could go with you." Now, Jesse and I got married the next day after Richie left. I can't say one caused the other, but I was reaching out. Her hand took mine, and that's when I realized that I couldn't be complete without her. The Navajos call it the Long Walk. Forced into exile from their native land, marched to Fort Sumter in eastern New Mexico, where the government attempted to turn them into farmers and traders, contrary to their hunting and shepherding ways. They endured for 5 years of desolation before America admitted failure and sent them home to the wondrous place. I had come to the reservation, as I had many times before. The Indians liked me, and I felt at home among the Indians. Sometimes I think if it hadn't been for them, I might have had to do something else for a living. I could always draw a crowd there, and they were among my most loyal fans. The Indians had initially been won over by a love of the common people. In March of 1969, I'd been booked to play Flagstaff, Arizona by Johnny Yersick, a local boy. To promote the concert, he asked the area disc jockey, Mike McQuaid, of KGAK, to feature my current hit single, Mental Revenge, from the album that I had out at the time, called Jewels. It was a Mel Tillis song, but they didn't like it at the station, so they started spinning the B-side of The Chokin' Kind, which was nearly 2 years old at this point. They couldn't believe the reaction. Suddenly they were getting requests to play it before the record had a chance to fade out over the air. Even after McQuaid repeated it 6 times in a row, the phone would ring and a Native American voice would say on the other end, "Would you please let us hear Common People again?" They took to me like kin. They had a basic credo of trust and honor. and they lived their religion all day, every day, in the shadow of the Great Spirit. We both handled liquor about the same way, only in their case, they couldn't buy just a drink. If cops caught them with alcohol, they'd take it away and put them in jail. So what they did was buy a whole bottle and swallow it all. They weren't buying a drink, they were buying a drunk. The same was true with me, only it was a pill intake that was covering over a sense of loss of unfulfilled purpose. Even though it's hard to draw a comparison between the fate of a downtrodden, honorable people and one man's struggle to have his music heard, sometimes I felt that Nashville was fencing me in the same as these proud Indian tribes had been enclosed in their reservations. I'd lost my way. The more I worked, the more in debt I got. And the more my records sold, the further they receded from what I had in mind and the sound I wanted to hear, the impact I wanted them to have. I kept trying it their way, and I saw I wasn't going to get it. Nashville had a definite set formula as to what they thought a country record ought to sound like. There's more than one kind of country music, though, a wide range that takes in everything from bluegrass to western swing. Their country was smooth and pop. One road that led to Nashville south. Well, I couldn't do that. I didn't want to do that. In the summer of 1972, I had dates booked on the reservation north of Gallup. I'd gotten an antibiotic shot in town for a tooth problem, and Father Dunstan, the priest who booked us on the shows, told me that when I went up into the Indian settlements, I shouldn't eat or drink anything because there was an epidemic of hepatitis. I remembered his warning right after I'd eaten some pie and drank some milk in a little cafe near the Colorado border on the Ute Reservation. Now, when we got back to town, I felt sick and battered. We headed on to Buck Lake Ranch and played our show. After we finished, exhausted, I went back to the bus and laid down. I couldn't get up. My back was killing me and my kidneys hurt. Jesse came in and told me I was looking yellow. They took me home, and I didn't even wake up during the ride. The next thing I knew, there was a doctor looming over me. I was saying, bullshit, I ain't going to no hospital. He came and stood by the bed, looking 7 feet tall, and I said, God damn, Jesse, you done run a giant in on my ass. I didn't even know what hepatitis was, and I didn't want to quit. I was ready to keep going. Give me some pills, and I'll get right up from here again. I got to feeling worse, and Jessie was just like a little old chihuahua. She didn't know whether I was going to live or die, and she was nervous. Finally, she talked me into getting treatment at the hospital. It was the first time I'd pulled to a halt in years. Stop and start over. It's been the pattern of my life whenever things get beyond my control. Lying there, I started thinking about what I'd won after 10 years of banging around the honky-tonk circuit. My health was shot. I was close to $250,000 in debt and getting deeper in the hole whether I played shows or not. The IRS was on my tail, and I was paying alimony to 3 wives. If I went on the road, I lost money. If I stayed home, I lost more. As for record sales, I never got ahead of the 5% of 90%, and the packaging fees, and the overseas split, and the studio costs, and the multi-track accounting books. Whenever they gave you a piece of the royalties up here, they took it away down there. You couldn't figure who owed what and why. I wasn't getting ahead with a team of lawyers and accountants, and besides, we were supposed to be all shucks good old country boys. They thought we were stupid, that we were so thankful to be able to play the guitar and sing, so grateful that they gave us our start, and were happy that they were there when we needed them, as long as we didn't ask for any real power or look too closely behind the scenes. If you don't make waves, RCA and Decca, Epic and Capitol were telling us, we'll let you keep making records. Thanks, boss. I was tired of getting ripped off. Lucky Moeller was my manager as well as my booking agent, and I couldn't understand, even after being on the road more than 2/3 of the year, every year, how I could still owe him $30,000. Richie had come back in early 1972. One of the conditions of his return was that he could have his own stash, meaning pot. Now, I guess that it worked for him. The first thing he had done after leaving was head back to Phoenix, buy a pound of grass, lock himself in a room for a month, sleeping and eating and getting off of pills. Having been away, he was a little bit shocked at the changes in me. He wasn't the only one. I was lying in bed getting more and more depressed over my prospects and wondering why I was sliding deeper into Nowheresville. I finally said to myself, I'm never going to have any hit records, and I'm never going to be a success in this business. I might as well go back to the nightclub circuit and play my music. It was all over. Wait a minute, he said, before you pack it in. I think that we can give it one more shot. Just try it. There's another way of doing things, and it's called rock and roll. Why not? It made a lot of sense. I was mentally rock and roll, and it was an attitude as much as music. We were rock and rolling and everything but our allegiance to country.